Hi, and welcome today to Celebrity Customer Experience, Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything from employee experience to customer experience, because I guarantee you, your employee experience will be the leading indicator of your customer experience. And when you create this connection culture within your business, one where you have genuine relationships and connections and accountability, then you can count on your employees delivering that celebrity customer experience to your paying customers. So welcome, everyone. I'm really happy that you're joining us today, whether it's live or in the comments, or in the replay. Please feel free to leave your comments, tag us. If you're watching live and you leave your comments, great. You can actually join the conversation in real time with my guest and I. And if you're doing it in the replay, then tag us so that we can engage with you after the fact. I want to thank you for your time investing here to explore these topics, because the two are intrinsically connected: employee experience and customer experience. They are in fact separable. So I want you to know how much I appreciate your time. I know that it is our most valuable resource. So share this also with anyone who you think can enjoy, can learn from it, and take away actionable items. So I have a question for you. Do you think that employees and customers are one and the same? I would guarantee that probably most people don't view the employee and the customer in the same way. I think they probably feel like employees are there to serve and not really get involved with what their needs are, not take into account what their needs are, but only be thinking about the customer's needs. Well, we're going to be discussing that today with my guest, Anthony Hamilton, who I'd like to introduce you to right now. Anthony, welcome to Celebrity Customer Experience.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is really exciting for me.
Oh, I'm so excited. We are going to have so much to talk about. Y'all are in for a real treat. Anthony Hamilton is a restaurateur with a strong culinary background stemming from his studies at the CIA, Kent State, and diligently working through his ranks of Cleveland dining scene from the beginning of his journey at Moxie Restaurant, a Cleveland institution. Throughout his 20 plus years of career in hospitality, he's run kitchens and establishments ranging from quick service to fine dining. And Anthony also has worked as a corporate chef and restaurant consultant at Hillcrest Foods, while simultaneously holding a position as associate lecturer at Kent State University in hospitality management program. At Hillcrest Foods, he helped found the Restauranttopia, a leading industry podcast that continually unpacks relevant industry issues in effort to alleviate stress, trials, and tribulations for the independent restaurant operator. So important. And in January of 23, Anthony became COO of the Icon Group Hospitality, an independent restaurant acquisition restaurant acquisition and operations firm.
It's a mouthful.
And what I love, it is. And what I love most, Anthony, honestly, is where you say that you place relentless priority on kindness and serving others.
Yeah.
You argue that helping should be your middle name. So Anthony Helping Hamilton, let's dive right in.
Did I write that?
Well, I kind of added a little bit at the end, but yes, you wrote that.
That's great. That was perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate the kind introduction.
Oh, of course.
I think you nailed it.
Well, I'm really excited. I think we are kindred spirits, and I'm actually looking forward to being on your podcast, Restauranttopia. Soon we'll be talking after this one, but for right now, let's just treat all of our listeners today and going forward who hears this to learn a little bit. Just give me a little bit about your background and why you ended up going into hospitality and restaurants in particular.
Yeah, I think with most chefs, it probably starts with a strong cooking presence at home, right? And so it's pretty cliche. I was born in a small town. Oops.
can hear you.
Born in a small town. Yeah, are you there?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, great. There's my window. Gee whiz! These Macs are connected with your phone. I so
It's
apologize so
okay.
much. So with chefs, a lot of times it stems from when you grow up, and with me, it was with my grandmother, and I grew up in a big Italian American household. It was always the meatballs, right? Always the meatballs. And I would be at the stove, and I would just watch my grandma cook, and of course she would slap my hand with a wooden spoon and all the other stuff the grandmas did back in the 1980s, right? But I was always just so wildly impressed about the formation of food and the results. And then further, what happened at the table when everybody was breaking bread and eating and sharing stories and loving each other. And I thought, wow, food is such a powerful mechanism. And so multifaceted in the fact that A, it's so enjoyable, but then also the craft of it is enjoyable and fulfilling. But then the end result of everybody getting together and just the hospitality notion just brought me a lot of joy. And I was hooked at a young age. You know, I used to cook. You'd ask my friends in elementary school and junior high, would have sleepovers. I'd wake up early to cook them breakfast, right?
Wow,
In seventh grade, right? And
I
so
love
at
it.
the time, I thought it was normal at the time. And then I realized that I might have a higher appreciation for food and making food and bringing people together than most of my peers did. But as you go through high school and stuff, you get kind of pigeonholed and you get some good grades, and they think you might be in a better suited being an engineer or something. But I'll be honest, it was a real big turning point for me with a TV show, and it was Essence of Emerald. Essence of Emerald, believe it or not, right?
Wow.
And I don't know if you remember or not, but Emerald was like, aside from Julia Child and Graham Kerr and the Frugal Gourmet, they were all on PBS. They were never really mainstream. But when
Mm,
Emerald came out, it was similar time to Iron Chef, right? If you remember that show, the original Japanese version. And I remember my grandma was always like my beacon. She was my role model. It's not to say that other family members weren't important, but she was the one, right? And I remember her, she loved Emerald's show so much. And
mm,
she was always the one I looked for approval. I was always embarrassed to tell my family at the time that I wanted to be a chef because back then it wasn't exactly like a very esteemed profession. I mean, it was in major metropolitan areas, but in the Midwest, no one knew chefs. They didn't know who Daniel Malud was, right? And so I remember
mhm.
my grandma loving Emerald so much. And then at that point in time, I saw her infatuation. I told her I wanted to cook for a living, and she encouraged me, and the rest is history. And then I got lucky enough to get an opportunity at CIA, and I left my studies behind, and I ran for Hyde Park, New York, 1946 Campus Drive. Never looked back. Never looked back. So that's how it all started. And
That's fantastic. I love
I
that
haven't lost the
story.
bug. Haven't lost the bug. It's still there.
Yeah, it is a bug. I think I actually wrote I'm a columnist for Nation's Restaurant News about
I'm aware.
um, about culture, company culture, and one of my
Yeah.
articles was about the hospitality side, like the word hospitality, and that we really, I think, are different creatures in a way. Of course, there's not a gene, but for ease of use of
There might
that
be.
word, right, a broad spectrum. There's something, and it gets in you, and there's just this passion, this love of people and of food and the combination, and I love, I mean, that classic, right, the impact of a mother and a grandmother, right, one mother before, um such a strong icon, such a strong
Yeah.
beacon, and the
Yeah.
power. And I think that's what happens with why we all love restaurants, why we love going out and eating. So, um, to jump right in, because this show goes so fast. Um, so employees and customers, right? Let's just face it
Yeah.
head on. Like, are they one and the same? What I think most people, as I said in my intro, most people don't see them the same. They're like, you're
Yeah.
there to serve me, and as the customer, and the old adage that the customer's always right, which is, I think, long gone from the vernacular of today's restaurant experience. Even though I think we need to prioritize the customer experience, that's crucial. But now we need to think about, and it's something I've been saying a long time, and clearly you believe as well, that we need to think about the employee experience as well. So tell us why you think they're one and the same.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It really distills down to a really simple principle. Without employees, you don't have customers, right?
There
And
you go.
how can you do the job of serving the customers if you don't have employees? Of course, you can be a one person show, but that's not really realistic, right? We all know that. This occurred to me, and it's something we've talked about in Restauranttopia quite a bit. Is the search for customers and getting customers in your door what you're trying to do is always establish some sort of competitive advantage, right? Amongst the competition, amongst your industry peers, whatever the case may be. What can I do that's craveable? What can I do that's unique to get these people in? At the onset of the pandemic, in even 2019, we saw one of the largest staff shortages the industry has ever seen. And I would argue the industry got rocked to its core. And I'm going to be honest with you, maybe we can unpack later if we have time. I'm really, really happy it did. The industry needed to take a long look in the mirror about how employees were handled and treated. When I grew up in the industry, we were merely a tool to get to customer experience. And that was it. And we were treated like tools, and we were wrung out like towels, and we were largely, taken advantage of and abused and not necessarily owned, but sometimes it felt that way working in restaurants, because it was more serious than life or death at the time. And I thought that was always wildly inappropriate, but I followed suit because I love the industry so much. So we scale back out, and again, we go back to the onset of the pandemic, and it hit me. And at this time, I wasn't back in operations. So I'd taken about an 8-year gap to teach in academia, as you talked about, and obviously work with Hillcrest, who I'm still with today. Amazing company, by the way. But I have an opportunity to study and learn, and then broadcast to other restaurateurs out there and let them know what we're finding when they don't have time to study. And it became apparent to me that and it bothered me that a lot of people were saying there's no staff out there. No staff wants to work. And it hit me, and it's like, well, no, staff just doesn't want to work for you. There's plenty of staff out there. What are you doing as an organization to set yourself apart to attract these employees in the same way that you would set yourself apart to attract the customers? And that to me was one of the core tenets of this thought and the title of the show, because as an employer, as a restaurateur, now that I'm walking the walk and living the life again, it's become apparent to me that it's absolutely true. We cater to our employees almost as much as we cater to our guests. And I know for some out there, it's probably like, that's maybe a lot. But when you look at the expensive turnover, the turmoil it goes through to recruiting and vetting and training and onboarding, it's an arduous process. The more we can eliminate that process from our daily routine, the more we can actually focus on our business and focus on our customers. And so what we try to do is we really try to win our employees over right out of the gate, create raving fans of our organization. And the best way to do that, as you know, is through relatability, likability, and that word we use a lot, culture, right? We make it a place where people want to be. And I think that starts with like-minded individuals. I think that starts with kindness to each other. I think it starts with treating each other like we are customers, and going to the lengths to serve each other that we would those customers that walk in the door. And I think sticking to that has helped us tremendously in our ventures in Icon, even though it's our rookie year. We've had a large amount of success and very, very low turnover once we've acquired the companies and got them situated. And we've created a lot of stickiness. And I think that right there is going to lead to a lot of fun in year 2. I promise you that much, because our teams are so solid and we have so much continuity. And it's not to say that we won't ever have to fight that, because it's very much a fluid thing. And as you know, it's not a destination. It's very much a journey, much like happiness, right? You never get to that point where you're perfect. It's always churning a little bit. But when we stick to our core tenets, it makes the hiring process, the recruiting process, all of it so much easier. And then to that vein, it makes the work not feel like work. Like, we have fun, we laugh and we cry together, and we have each other's backs 100% of the time. And it's really, really an amazing feeling to go out and practice what I've been preaching for the last 7 or 8 years.
Well, God, you've touched on so many elements. I hope everyone's there, with a pen or a key, typing away on your keyboard, because, wow, where to start? First of all, amen. 100%. I mean, we echo what each other feels, and teach and consult and talk about, and you're living it, you're doing it.
Yeah.
So that's great. And, I feel like it's just like one experience, one restaurant at a time, that we can make that change and that difference. And
Sure.
I think as we do that, kind of, not to be too woo-woo, but for me, look at your joy, look at your excitement, your enthusiasm. That's contagious. And so
it's
by you doing that with your people, and then they're gonna be like that with their end customers, which comes back to a little bit of the topic. And then they're going to walk out because it is contagious, and they're going to walk out with this great experience. And if people have heard me tell experience that I had with a bank, actually, which is usually quite dry, but it was the same kind of really good experience with the employees. And I left there feeling really good. And if we can each do that and have that experience every day of our life, because we are customers multiple times throughout every day of our life, think of what a better world we would live in. I know it's kind of crazy to think about, we're taking from restaurants, but I do really feel that we would all be happier and see the commonality in each other and the joy that we can share. So I'm going to sidetrack, but you mentioned the arduous process of the hiring, the interviewing, the initial onboarding, and the training. There's so much. I just want to say, in addition to being arduous, it's probably one of the most costly items that you have in your business. And
Cornell put a number on it, actually.
What?
The Cornell School of Hospitality put a number on it, actually. It's about $5,600 per hourly employee is what it costs you.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean,
that's wild.
It is $5,600 per employee, right? And you put that across your entire group. It's huge. And think about the time loss. Like that's I wonder if that number includes.
It is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it starts with the downside of that employee leaving, right? And their dissatisfaction and their lack of focus and what that costs you based on, a little bit of culture, some extra turnover, lack of customer service. And then the actual activities that you have to spend time in recruiting and going through all the resumes and making all the phone calls and all the interviews, right? There's money there. And then during the training process, onboarding process, how much that costs. And then again, the dissatisfaction of a new employee, the mistakes they make, the continuity that needs formed with their new teammates, all of it has a dollar figure. How they quantified that qualitative nature, I have no idea, but they're really smart. So I want to take their word for it.
Yeah, for sure. And the morality, like think about how it affects the morale of your both. Again, we're talking about employees and customers as this being one and the same. It affects your employees' morale, and it's going to affect the experience and morale and the feeling that your customers get. And they may not know internally what's going on. They don't need to. They feel it. And that's all that matters. And when you feel it and you don't even, in the same way, the opposite, when they have a great experience, they shouldn't know all the details. They just know that, wow, this is smooth. It's positive, it's good, whatever it is, the food, the way they're being pampered and taken care of, it all comes down to that feeling. And I think that people are people first and we're customers second, regardless. And so when we really bond over that and we recognize the importance of the first end, the internal customer, your employee, versus your end customer, your paying customer. They may be your paying customer. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the C-suite looks at it as, well, we're just looking at people who are giving us money. And they need to stop and think about your employees who are bringing in that money because of the nature of the way they've been educated, the way they've been taught to engage, the way they've been taught your core values. I mean, my next article coming out is actually talking about, do your people really know your core values, your vision, your mission? Are they able to communicate that to your customers, the frontline people? Would they know how to respond in alignment to your values when something goes wrong? And I think that kind of goes to the crux also of, the cost. It has a cost both internally, because no one wants to feel that they're incapable of representing the company or being able to deliver that service to your customer. The employees want to feel empowered to do that. So there are just so many elements to that, for sure. Gosh, you've said so much, and it's all the way.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that word you just said there, because I think the word cost is often misappropriated in our industry, right? And I think when we look at our organization, we've taken the term cost and kind of really tried to consciously take it out of a lot of sentences we use. When it comes to the cost of hiring or the cost of vetting, recruiting, and getting someone on board, that's not a cost to us. That's an investment, right? So it's not an expense.
So
there's return that comes back on that. So the more quality, currency, for whatever lack of a better term, you put in there, the better your return's going to be, right? So when we
Mm.
look at it, we say, oh, that's going to be expensive. It's like, well, yeah, in the short run, it might seem like it's expensive, but it will pay for itself in spades time and time again, if nothing else through loss of turnover, and then a little more idealistically through enjoyment in your career path. I can tell you,
Yeah.
I wake up every morning and I go to bed every night super excited for work the next day. And I know that sounds unrealistic, but it's true. We've created this area, and it wasn't me alone. Obviously, I'm just one person, but the people we've surrounded ourselves with are amazing. I love spending time with them. And I love
Mhm.
going from property to property and checking in with people, taking a vested interest and hearing about their dogs or their kids or whatever the case may be. I truly love these people. And when that happens, boy, I tell you, there's no work and work anymore. There's no like I don't look at the clock and say I can't wait till 5 o'clock or I can't wait till it's time to go home. I'm often look at the clock like, dang, I better make it home for dinner. My wife's going to be upset with me, right? And
Yeah.
she's the best. She's the best. I joke. She doesn't. She understands what I do, and she's very much involved in what we do as well. But there is that point where I get so caught up in what I do, and because I enjoy myself so much that I lose track of time, and that's what a blessing that is. So
It
then
is
I ask you,
such a blessing.
is it even work at that point? Right? It's not for
Right.
me. It's like a
Yeah.
really amazing hobby that I love to do. It just happens to pay.
Exactly. It's like we're in the people business, we're in the service business, and it happens to be food. But either way, it could be anything. And often people say, "Oh, well, do you only work with restaurants?" I'm like, no, the principles are the same. We're talking about people, and like what you said at the top of this is, if you have a service or a product to sell, if you have something you're offering, you have to have people to deliver it. So
Hmm.
these concepts really could be taken outside for anyone who's listening who's not in the hospitality or restaurant industry. These things are the same regardless of what industry you're in. And, yes, the cost, I love that so much. 99% of life is in your attitude. And I think it's your attitude about that word and how it's been assigned certain meanings that we need to break down and say, cost, it's not a cost just because it's expending money, right? It goes so much deeper, the effects of it. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot more expensive for all the other reasons that you outlined to not invest in the beginning. And if we
Yeah.
want our businesses to succeed, no matter who we are and whether you're a solopreneur or whether you're a big 100 Fortune 500, 100, whatever business, you have to invest, right? You have to look at it. And I think that the mistake is looking at the bottom line as just pure numbers without realizing what is it that those numbers represent, and how do those numbers um, come back to bite you if you've got the constant churn, right? I'm always like
Yeah.
churning, the churn, the turnover. Like, you're not making butter, right? You're supposed to be having a productive business, and so if
I
you
mean, we
don't
do make
start,
butter sometimes.
yeah, but we
Like
don't want to
quite
make butter
literally.
with the churn of our people we're pulling
Right.
out the door, right? Yeah, we rather make it to serve with our sourdough bowls or something
Yeah,
like
that's exactly right. That's
that.
exactly right. Nice. Nicely done.
Yeah. Um, And so, yeah, I always just want to really encourage anyone who's in that decision making position to recognize that when you invest in your people up front, that's when you're going to see the return coming in exponentially, and you're going to find those happy people. And also, when you do lose someone, because it is part of the nature of this business, unfortunately, and depending upon which part of the business, especially for your QSR, your quick service restaurants, those, you're going to have younger employees, and so naturally they're going to be turning over as they go to school, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that when you're looking at that you need to mine for gold from within. What I mean by that is, instead of immediately looking for someone outside, where you have to really start vetting and going through all the steps you mentioned, if you're looking at the people that are already with you, people want to grow within their company. They wouldn't leave you if they knew they had opportunity for growth in your company. They want to be a part. They want to have a more say. They want to be more involved in the decisions that are going on. And so if you look at people who have potential, instead of just looking at resumes, and you look at how they've been committed to you, then reward them by giving them the opportunity to grow in your company. And you've avoided having to start looking over, with recruiters or the interview process and the onboarding and the initial training. You've already done all that. And so then, having them step into a greater role, first of all, I believe it's a lot like raising children. When you have a young child and you believe in them and you give them the opportunity and you let them know that they can do it, boy, people are going to show you, they're going to prove you right. Right. So instead of,
it's one of my favorite parts about the business. It really is. Allowing people to achieve levels they never thought they could achieve, And in one of our acquisitions this year, we picked up a legacy brand. It's been around since 1947. And we had some meetings right off the top because, of course, we like to check on our properties at least weekly. And I'm there more so than often, but we have structured meetings and we share war stories. And we manage KPIs and all that stuff too. But there was one really quiet server that I saw her picking weeds out of the flower bed when I pulled in. No one had asked her to do so. And she sat in the meeting because she sometimes managed the bar. And she didn't say anything for maybe the first 2 meetings. And it was the third meeting, she dropped a couple sentences in there that really just kind of stopped my presses. I'm kind of just like, wait, who are you again? Like, where did you learn that? And what did you say? And you start peeling back the layers of this individual and you realize their passion, you realize their knowledge. But it was a resource that went largely untapped because there was more maybe gregarious people in front of her. And she was naturally not introverted per se, but she's a very humble individual. And at that point in time, when I saw the combination of what she said, her insights, her point of view, and her wisdom at such a young age, and the fact that she was willing to pick weeds out of the flower bed in their downtime, I linked the two together. And I leaned over to one of my partners and said, "That's our GM," and he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "That's our GM." So we made her GM about a week later. And
nice.
She has been crushing it, absolutely crushing it, right? But she had never put herself in that circle because she maybe lacked the confidence. And to your point, she lacked the empowering and the encouragement, the belief from upper management, the previous owners, whatever. It's not their fault. Sometimes you just don't notice these things. But she stood out to me immediately, and I got lucky in that. And she's been doing it for 6 months now. And that, to me, is more important than any number you can put on the P&L. That is what it's all about, right? And I find that if those things are in line, you do more of that. The numbers at the end and on the paperwork that our accountants deal with, they always work out, don't they? They always do. But the inputs is what I'm focused on. For quality of the day for each individual, the noble purpose, the validation that they all seek, the recognition that they need and deserve. I think one of my friends told me recognition. What do you say? Grown men die for it and babies cry for it. Like, recognition's super important, isn't it? And so we try to offer that. We try to take a step out of our busy day and make sure we acknowledge those little micro bursts of amazing that people are doing all the time. Again, it's really simple. It doesn't cost you a lot. You just got to be mindful. And we go back to that word at the top of the show, kindness. If you just let that come out. But I grew up in an industry, Joe, where it was terribly toxic. And I always thought it was counterintuitive because, like, we're in a hospitality business. Like, we got here because our happiness is derived from treating people well and making people feel amazing, except for us. We don't deserve to feel amazing. Only the people out there paying money, right? Like, wait,
right.
why can't we all feel amazing? Right? Yeah. Why can't we all feel amazing? Like, geez.
And realistically, if we don't feel amazing, we're there delivering the service. How are they going to feel amazing? They're not. Yeah. Like, it's just, that's the human vibe between each other. Like, you can't make that up. You cannot manufacture it if it's not there.
One of my biggest pet peeves in the industry is I was talking to a server not too long ago, and she goes, "Well, time to put it on the show," and like that. And I'm like, "Wait, why do you have to put on the show? Like, why do you have to try to be happy? Why do you have to act happy? How about if we just made you happy and you just lived a happy existence and you didn't have to try?" And it just came out natural. And you find out that it's very, very infectious. And to your point, that trickles down, right? And matriculates right to the guest. And the guest can tell whether they think about it consciously or not. Intrinsically, they know whether that's a show or not. They know if that passion is real. And when you feel that, and there's, we've seen some organizations that have been amazing, like world class. It's kind of like the Chick-fil-A, right? We talked about Chick-fil-A so much when it comes to culture. And I know you're probably tired of it too. But, every time I pull up there, they seem just as excited as they were last week.
I know,
and it's like,
right?
Okay, A, they're drinking some really funky Kool-Aid that they probably shouldn't be drinking. Or B, they actually get treated that well and they believe in what they're doing because, dang, they got it down. They make me believe that it's truly their pleasure to serve me. And I love that. I'm here for it. As a customer, please give me all of that.
100%. I actually I was in the Dominican Republic for the first time over
Oh,
the break.
nice.
And oh my gosh, the property, I'm going to do a show just on that. The
Yes.
property I was
Yes.
at, I mean, it was spot on. And literally the feeling came because everybody that you interacted with said, you know, how are you? It's our pleasure to serve you. And then they would, put their hand over their heart. And when you ask them how they are, excelente. Like everything was always fantastic. And
Yeah.
and they would say, it's my pleasure to serve you. I mean, and you really, and with huge smiles, like you really, again, you felt it. There's that huge difference right there.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I believe in making leaders at every level is the way I express it. And I think you're right. Like here was someone that you were lucky to see, that you were not lucky, that you took the initiative to pay attention to someone else who was picking weeds. And the fact that she did that showed her character, right? Like, I mean, it's brilliant, but I think you need leadership like yourself that's going to observe the gold, the what you have there, as well as be able to take that and actually nurture it and give it the opportunity and show them that, look, we see you. People want to be seen, they want to be heard. Like you mentioned a few keywords, and I'm going to just run through this very quickly because we're at time, but you
Already?
touched on all the words. I know the words that of course we're very much aligned ourselves. But so I talk about the shark philosophy behind my work. And shark, the S is for serving from heart, like being genuine, authentic, really serving. The H is hear people. Don't just listen to what they're saying, but really like hear what they're saying, really listen and take it to heart and be able to act on that. The A is acknowledge. You talked about acknowledgement. People want to be acknowledged, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, whatever it is, you've got to have that acknowledgement. The R is respect and resolution. So resolution, even if it's not a trouble, maybe they're just hungry, right? You're resolving that. Or if is a problem, you're resolving that, and you're doing it respectfully. And my final one, which I love the most, which you said as well, is K is for kindness.
Knew it.
And I think when you do everything with kindness, it's you can't lose, right? You can't lose.
I mean, don't we? Isn't it nicer being nice? It's a choice. I mean,
It is a
really.
choice. We
I
feel
know.
better, and whoever's around us is going to feel better.
I hate feeling better. Right? Like,
Let's
I always
be
want to feel
nasty.
better. Yeah,
And
that's
of
it.
course,
That's it. So
all those things then bring back repeat customers. They bring in referrals. That's where you build your bottom line. That's where
I
the
might
strength
I
comes
may be borrowing your acronym there, just so you know. I was writing it down as you were talking. I
from.
love
Okay,
that. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool. Um, yeah, it's something that I just feel strongly in, and I think it sums up any sort of delivery of engagement with the customer or with anyone for that matter. Really, I think so
The
much
best
of
part
it.
about
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. The best part about what you said is all of that's free. All of
Yeah,
it's free.
exactly.
It really is.
It
Yeah.
costs, talking about cost, it costs nothing to do.
Yeah.
It does cost as a company, the only cost comes in is that you need to incorporate that into your culture. So to
Yeah.
do that, it's free to do it if you hire those people, but you need to educate them. You can't just assume that people are going to come in and know that. You have to get everyone on board. So yes, there might be an investment cost to bring in someone to help educate them and train them to do those things and to incorporate that into all your standard operating procedures and all of those things, so that it's not just something they learn at the beginning, but they see it, they witness it, they feel it, they act on it every single day with everything they do in the employee or customer journey. And so there's the investment, but it's minuscule because the actual things themselves really don't cost anything. You don't have to go out and buy software for that. That's the
Right.
difference.
Right.
So Anthony,
I love it.
we're
Yeah.
over time, but tell me, tell us what would you say would be your key takeaway for someone to be able to apply immediately into their business in an easy way so that they can get the full benefit of their employee experience, so that their customer experience, so that they see that balance between the two, because the employees and customers really are the same. But how do people merge that and really put it into action?
Yeah, so two things I try to remind myself of every day. One of them is I'm a role model, whether I like it or not, right? I didn't necessarily choose to be a role model, but unfortunately, my position lends to that, right? So you have to wield that power responsibly. So you, as a leader of your organization, whether you're owner, the GM, the chef, whatever the case may be, people look at you as a north star for behavior, right? When they're and you talked about mission statement, you're kind of like the walking mission statement. How you behave is to some degree how your staff's going to behave. What you tolerate is what your staff's going to tolerate. What you settle for is what your staff's going to settle for. So don't take it lightly. You in your own shoes, and I know you probably just look in the mirror and you see yourself, but other people see a grandiose vision of you, right? You are the leader. You are the inspiration. You're probably the reason why they're there, right? Because they want to learn from you. Don't take that lightly. So always remember you're a role model, and make sure you push every sentence, every act through that filter to make sure what's coming out on the other end is what you want people to take away from you. Secondarily, I'm gonna borrow from our guy Danny Meyer. I'm sure you've heard of Danny Meyer before. And in his book, it was, to me, was a career changer. It was setting the table, and he talked about how he's least concerned about what happens from the time the customer walks into the door to when they leave, so long as they leave with a smile, right? And so I try to make that same kind of that action with our employees. If I can get them to leave with a smile, chances are it doesn't matter what happens when they walk in the door through mid shift at the end. If they leave with a smile, it means they're happy and they're going to come back happy, right? The same with customers. If you can get them to leave with a smile, they'll come back. Employees are the exact same way. So those are two things that I try to live by every day, and they've been incredibly helpful for me. So hopefully they help someone else.
Love it. Absolutely perfect. And yes, 100%. And I can keep going, but I'm not going to, because there's even just what you said. Yeah, Danny Meyer's brilliant. And I think that's the key. It doesn't matter in life, right? We mess up all the time, but it's how we fix it. It's what we do, how we respond to it,
That's
and
exactly
leaving
right.
with that smile. Turning my tagline, turning employees into advocates and customer magnets, right? So
That's
it's
good.
blends those two. You have
Yeah.
to have them all leaving with a smile. So with that, and it makes sense that we're leaving with a smile, because your name, your middle name might be helping, but I think it should also be happy. So,
I try. I
Anthony,
do a lot of
happy
mindfulness
helping.
work. I promise you.
I love it. Thank you so much
Awesome.
for sharing your wisdom today, your enthusiasm,
Wow.
your energy.
Oh,
You're
thanks for
terrific.
having me. I appreciate it. This is
Of
awesome. I
course.
always love these conversations. It's fantastic. Really is.
Me as
Thank you. Thank
well.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Stay tuned for another customer experience, celebrity customer experience, Rips with Jill Raff. And for today, Anthony, again, thank you. And we will check in with everyone next time. Thank you.
You got it.